the process of performance appraisal, the main thing of the today's class. So basically, see, in the previous class we have discussed, or basically in the previous class we have concluded telling that discussing the topic process of performance management. Now in one of the steps of the process of performance management came this particular step called as performance appraisal. Now we are again telling process of performance appraisal. Is it a different concept? No. Is it a related concept? Yes. Is it the same concept? No, but it is a related concept. That means, see, there is this entire process of performance management, right? Entire process that that is being followed in organization in order to manage the performance of the human resource in the organization, right? Now in between the process of managing the performance of the human resource in an organization, you use performance appraisal. Now this performance appraisal also has a particular set of steps, or a sequence of steps, or basically it also has a process. Now if you look at this process, the initial and the last steps in this particular process of performance appraisal will be similar to certain steps in performance management. Why? Because this is a part of performance management. Performance management had a sequence of steps, and in the middle you have this particular step called as performance appraisal. Now this performance appraisal also has a particular its own process. Now see, there are a list of steps. In between, one of the step is performance appraisal. This particular performance appraisal also has a list of steps. Now the top steps will be similar, or will be in sync with the other steps of the performance management process, and the bottom steps of the particular performance appraisal also will be in sync with the bottom steps of the performance management process. Why? Because this is the middle part of the performance management, right? That means it is also a part of the performance management, right? So basically this particular process of performance appraisal will be very similar to the process of performance management, because both of them are very related. That means this particular process of performance appraisal takes its input and gives its output to, or basically takes contributions and gives contributions to the process of performance management. Okay, that why I am telling all this, because when we start this, when I start telling these are the different steps in this particular process of performance appraisal, you will be telling that most of the steps are similar to the process of performance management. Is it the same thing, or is it a different thing? How is it related? All these things. So in order to clear that doubts for you, I'm just telling this concept. Okay, now let's get into this particular concept of process of performance appraisal. Okay, now let's see the different steps that are involved in the process of performance appraisal. So the process of performance appraisal. So these are the basic steps that are involved in the process of performance appraisal. That means in the process of giving performance appraisal, you follow all these steps. The first step is setting performance standards. I already told you there are so many different steps which go in sync with the process of performance management, because this is a part of performance management process. That is where this particular performance appraisal process starts. Now once you set the performance standards, you communicate them with employees, right? See, let me relate this with the process of performance management. See, in the process of performance management, where we started breaking down the organizational goals into relevant goals, that is the first step in performance management. And then we told that based on the broken down goals, we actually set goals to the employees, and then we communicate them. That means I told you that setting standards, performance standards to the employee, and in the same step only, in the same step of the process of performance management, I also told that in this step only you'll also be communicating the performance standards to the employee, right? Now this particular process of performance appraisal starts from here. That means the one of the thing is setting the standards, the second thing is communicating them. This particular process of performance appraisal actually uses these single step, or basically converts this single step into two different steps. Okay, that is where the entire process of performance appraisal starts. That means from this particular second step of the process of performance management only, this performance appraisal process takes its inputs. Now the first step in performance appraisal procedure is setting the performance standards and then communicating them with employees. Now what I told you, once you communicate, once the performance standards or expected levels of performance are communicated to the employee, what happens? They start working, right? Now the third thing is measuring the performance. That means ongoing performance takes place, and then you measure the performance, and then you compare the performance. See, keep the definition of performance appraisal in mind if you want to remember this entire process of performance appraisal in a very clear way. See, what is the definition of performance appraisal? leave that, it is a resultant of an annual semi-annual process where the manager evaluates the performance of the employee and uses that information. What did we discuss there in the definition of performance appraisal? We told that there is this manager, he takes into consideration the actual performance of the employee and the pre-standards that are performance standards that are set to the employee. He takes both of them into consideration, he measures them, he finds out the gap, and based on the gap he communicates his opinions, or what are the things that have to be done, what are the things that should not be done. And based on all these things, HR decisions takes place, right? Keep that, keep this entire concept of performance appraisal in your mind, entire definition of performance appraisal in your mind, because that is where you'll actually try to bring out the process from. See, the first step is setting performance standards, and then you communicate them to the employee, and then he starts working, right? Now you measure the performance. Okay, that means his actual performance that is delivered, and you compare the performance with the actual standards, with the actual expected performance standard that has been communicated, the targets given to him. You compare with that, and discussion or perform the basic discussion or performance appraisal review session happens there, based on the the gaps found between the actual performance and the expected performance, and based on them taking corrective measures. See, this particular taking corrective measures is related to the last step in the performance management process, where we told, right, HR decisions takes place based on the outcomes of the discussions, in this particular performance appraisal, we told, right? Now that is this taking corrective measures. Now see, just for your reference, I have also written here telling that, in the first step, setting up criteria to be used for appraising employees, that means setting performance standards. Once decided, performance appraisal standards are communicated to the employees, and then performance is measured, and then it is compared with the predetermined standards, and the comparison will reveal gaps, either positive or negative. In rare cases, neutral. That means the expected performance will match with the actual performance delivered. Now, positive gap means actual performance is greater than the standard performance. That means, for example, the target that an employee has to achieve is 100 mobiles. Now he has achieved 110 mobiles. That means here the gap is positive. That means he has achieved something more than his predetermined or pre-communicated performance standards. In that case, it is considered as a positive gap. Negative gap means actual performance is less than the standard performance. Okay, and there is also another scenario which is neutral difference, or there is no difference at all, where actual performance is equal to the expected performance. Now steps are taken to manage the gaps after communication or appraisal. So as we already discussed in the previous class, based on the outcomes of the discussion, or based on the gaps and the discussions that are happened related to these gaps, so many other different HR decisions are taken. For example, after discussing about the reasons why there are certain gaps, if the employer comes to the impression telling that, okay, this person is not well trained, now he may take the HR decision telling that, okay, this person needs training, he has to undergo training. In this way, based on the communication, based on the gaps, based on all the evaluation, certain HR decisions takes place. This is the end of the process of performance management as well as the process of performance appraisal. As I already told you, both of them are linked, because this particular process of performance appraisal, or basically this particular performance appraisal, is a part of performance management process, right? Now this is basically the process of performance appraisal.